Now, I did previously record this intro and I messed it up because I didn't plug my microphone in. And without my microphone, it sounds like I'm in an echo chamber. Now, what doesn't echo is the sound in space. See what I did there? Effectively, this watch has pedigree and history linked to lunar missions. Many of you have seen videos about this watch, or if you're browsing, you're thinking of buying one, you've seen it in a sale and you go, what? Before I commit to it, I'm going to watch a few idiots reviewing watches. I'm one of them. See if it's any good. I hope my honest take on it is going to help you out, but the prices they can fluctuate to are fantastic. My friend Jim got this for about 230, 240 pounds. So that's amazing value when they're normally 450 in this country, and they have been for years. To get it at that price is awesome. There's been a few tweaks to its design along the way, the logo, and you can get one with a polished case or even a PVD black coated one. But this one is the OG, if you will, the one that they released a few years ago, paying homage very strongly to the original. That was a backup piece by an astronaut when his Amiga, which was standard issue for astronauts at the time, failed on him. The crystal popped out. Obviously, it didn't like the change in pressures, etc., and it let him down. What didn't let him down was his backup watch, was the Bulova Lunar Pilot, effectively the watch that this one is paying homage to. That watch that he wore on the moon and sort of saved the day, if you will, for him. That was sold along the line by, I think it's from his family. They got over £1 million for it in the end. Crazy. An actual moon watch that's been on the moon. If I was filthy rich, I probably would have bought it and it would have been, I'd have worn it when I go to the moon. Anyway, that's enough of all that crap. You want to know about this watch, so I'll move on to now stats and specs, and I'll see you again for the analysis. So see you in a bit. So let's give you the walk around this rather interesting piece. Now, this has been out a long time. I know there's been probably 11 million videos done on this specific watch, but you know what? I've not done one. So hopefully you'll enjoy my take on this piece. I borrowed this, as you know, from my friend Jim, and I've been on the cusp of buying one of these for years. Literally when they came out, I was thinking about getting one, but I don't know why I've never done it. And that's what we're going to cover in today's video. Is probably why many of you may or may not buy it. But something might give you a spark to sort of push yourself over the edge to buy it. The first thing I wanted to sort of show you that I'm not 100% keen on is this other strap. The reason why I don't like it is, first of all, it's rather stiff and it's not as giving around this part here, which is actually, because this is such a long lug to lug, that's the first bit you need to have some give, because it's going to immediately need to conform around your wrist, because it's a very long watch. 53mm, as I said in the stats and specs, is long. So when you've got a strap which is quite thick and you want it to immediately conform, it's a bit unforgiving at first, but that will bed in. But I have decided to not wear it while I've borrowed it off my mate Jim on this strap, because this is far more like what an astronaut would have worn, because it's got a long bit of material. You wrap it through, and if a spring bar fails in space, your watch doesn't drift off for eternity and you'd never see it again. It's actually just great, and I love all this coding on here. It just looks very authentic, and it's very in keeping with what this is. This is an homage. Being a black monochrome watch with just black and white, it's going to be a strap monster. By that I mean you can just work with so many, because it hasn't got any other competing colours on the watch itself. So you can put this on tan, black, white, yellow, pink, green, whatever. It's going to work almost on anything. They did do one on a bracelet as well, but that costs more. But the ones that were on sale and you could get for these ludicrously low prices, and they're probably going to go down in price again, I like it to be the ones on straps. Now, something that's been discussed again, probably on every video, if you've ever seen others about this watch, is the lug to lug length. Not so much worried about the height. I mean, that isn't actually a major issue, because a lot of chronograph watches are generally thicker watches. This is not a dress watch, it's a sports watch. You can get away with a bit more heft or size to a sports watch, because that's what you'd kind of expect for a piece like that. But the thing that is letting it down a bit is, I know it has a 45mm case size, which again, that doesn't really matter, because there are lots of watches with large case sizes but have a shorter lug to lug and they wear really well. It's not always about case size, and I have a 7-inch wrist and it just about works on me. So this is something that if you want to make a statement on your wrist, you want it to look like a nice big impressive watch, you'll be happy with that. But for personal taste and preferences, I just think it's a bit too long. And the solution to that would be, I wish that they'd released this when they did, more in keeping with the size of the piece, which was a one-off piece, by the way. That was a watch that was obviously kept by the astronaut David Scott, because the Omega Speedmasters that they were issued by the government, they were government issued and they had to be returned. So they never got to keep their watches. So this watch sold, obviously the original that this is paying homage to, for so much money, because it was a one-off and it's the only watch ever to have been in space and kept someone's private collection after that. And one of the very few people, one of 12, that's actually stood on the moon. So you put all that together, that's what adds value. So that's why buying into that is fun with this piece. If they're going to go true homage, I wish that they'd put the font that's on the newer ones, which is more classier, neater, a bit more elegant, a bit more modern, a bit more cool, if you know what I mean, a bit more from that era, instead of this one, and drop the size down. They dropped this a few mil and reduced the lug to lug. I would have snapped it up in a heartbeat, to be honest with you. I love this smooth sweep you get here with the tachymeter hand. That is awesome. I like that this stops after 30 seconds to help preserve the battery. But it's still working in sort of behind the scenes, if you will. It's just not turning the wheel. But when you stop it and you want to reset it, I always like a snapback. I don't like this sort of relatively slow motion return to 12. And I think for something like this, which you say can go to the moon, or think at least it can, having 50 meters water resist just doesn't sound very much. I think 100 meters with maybe a screw down crown would have been better, but it does have a substantial screw case back, which is cool. But after that, I can't think of much more to really waffle on about negatively. The first thing in terms of the awesome positives are, I love the design. This design theme was effectively part of the criteria that's similar to the Dirty Dozen watches, military field watches that were designed. They all look very similar because there was a design criteria set by the government at the time for these kinds of watches. When they are to be made for a purpose, they have a list of criteria, and when they're met, they all seem to look very similar. That's why this has essence of Speedmaster about it, because it has to fit that criteria. This has done so perfectly. There's a real positive about this monochromatic color theme because it's so legible. Even though there's quite a lot going on this dial, it's still such a quick glance and read the time kind of timepiece because it's so clear. And that lovely snap between that gorgeous crisp white and that very matte dial, it's just gorgeous. It's so simple. Sometimes less is more. Even though there's more going on the dial, these markings and dials, it's still so crisp. And that's something that is so impressive with such basic design elements. And that's something they've got right. And I think could be incorporated in far more watches. And I just think it's so clever, this depth they've done. They've got different depths going on. They've got this upper tachymeter ring, and then you've got for the lovely, very, very minute track going here, there's like an inner part. So it's almost layered at the very bottom, and then sandwiched above that is where the dials are. Again, it helps bring contrast to all the different elements of things that you like to use for timekeeping and measuring. Stops them overlapping. It gives that little bit of contrast between themselves. I think that's a really clever bit of design. It's absolutely stunning. Then the pushers, what gorgeous feel. Normally quartz pushers don't have a snap or a feel to them, but when you press them, it's so lovely, a lovely little pop feeling. This design, I can't believe more people don't use this. You could press it at different parts of the pusher and it's going to work. It's kind of thing, if you imagine you're again in space, you've got massive gloves on and you need to time yourself doing your space missions or whatever, or playing golf on the moon and time how long it takes for the ball to disappear into space. I don't know. So easy. You could just mash it with your hand and it just works. You know, it's so easy. And that's another fantastic functional element which I like that they brought on to the this example as well. It's that functionality. And the fit and finish is gorgeous. You've got this lovely brushed upper part of the case here, the bezel if you will. The frosted element of the box sapphire which comes up, it's so crisp. It's still got a lovely slightly polished chamfer on the very top bit there, and then you've got this bead blasted finish on the mid case and again on the bottom of the case. I'll show you that in a minute. Signed crown, then you've got the polished sides of the pushers, but then the top of the pushers are brushed. And there's all these lovely play on finishes. You've got brushed, bead blasted, polished. It's so clever how all these simple elements play together. It's a bit like this monochromatic dial. It's still got depth of texture to it, but it's still playing with just two colors. It's black and white, but there's just all those little elements that play together. You've even got sunburst on the dials here, the sub dials. I'm going to show you the case back as well. Again, that's a lovely masterful play on textures as well, because we've got this polished ring around here just to break up the information. You've got on the outer edge just the spec of the watch, etc. And then you've got some lovely factual information about some historical events relating to this piece and the Apollo mission, etc. And that's just lovely. And I love these little screws. I don't actually know what they do, but they just look cool. It just adds a little bit of techie feel to the back of the watch. So even though, again, it's a very simple case back, it's not showing off anything fancy, I just think it's just very cleverly designed and it's very pretty because of its simplicity. Now I'm going to discuss the Lume on this watch. The Lume is fantastic. It's going to be Citizen Lume, which is always very good because Bulova is part of the Citizen group and they're going to use their proprietary technology, and the Lume is fabulous on this. I love the colour as well, beautiful. It's icy blue. It makes me think of the coldness of space almost. My imagination is running wild. I'm going to talk lastly, I just love this movement. It's got 262 kilohertz frequency. Now, bear in mind, most quartz movements running around the 30-ish thousand. Correct me with the exact number, but it's give you an idea of the frequency, the tuning fork of, it's a tiny piece of quartz crystal which has been machined into a shape, which, so you know what that shape is, it's literally that on the crown. That's a tuning fork. But Bulova have got the technology where they refined that shape and design of that tuning fork of piece of quartz crystal. And when you pass electricity through it, it vibrates. So imagine the fork going like this, but imagine it vibrating on a normal quartz, say at 30-odd thousand kilohertz. It's going to give you a certain amount of smoothness and accuracy and frequency. But imagine you turn up that frequency, you're going to get even more refined accuracy and precision. That's why these Bulovas, with this ultra high frequency quartz movement, not only do you get this smoothness with the timing, look how smooth that sweep is on the tachymeter. And it's also the same with the seconds hand. That's just smoothly going around there. What you get is this is about 10 seconds accuracy discrepancy per year. And that's unbelievable for at this price point. So it's not very often you'll get a watch with this kind of history and pedigree for this amount of money. That's why I think this watch is a winner. Yes, it has flaws. Yes, it has a few quirks and annoyances, like it's quirky lug to lug length and it's quite thick and it's weird little narrow strap and it's bulky, thick, leathery strap. I prefer it on the fabric strap, to be honest with you. But there are other options you can try it on. But overall, for this kind of specification, pedigree and history, functionality, it does look cool. It's a very pretty watch as well, I think, in my opinion. It's a fantastic all-rounder, and I think my friend James getting it at the price he got it at was incredible. And if you can find it at that price, really good luck to you, well done, but they're still out there. But even if not, I think you'd still be happy with paying for it at this price. It's a really interesting watch to have in the collection. It was something that has a bit of a story behind it, and that's often what is part of the fun of owning a watch or having this hobby in general, is telling a story. If you've liked my storytelling today, click on the subscribe button if you haven't. Check out my other videos. Hope to see you in one of my other ones. In the meantime, thanks a lot. Bye for now.